Hello, thanks for joining me again. Wait, let's make this official. What's wrong with this painting? Number 2. Woohoo! Again, I'm going to try to make this real quick. Very different from the painting I was working on just a few minutes ago. This is a very famous landmark just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. It's called Yates Mill. It's this kind of mill, of course, used to dot the landscape all across America, but most of them have fallen down and been taken down. This one was restored, and it's a real nice park and recreation area, and a place where I painted probably 5 or 6 times over the years. And the drawing here is quite accurate. I'm standing on a hill, across the mill stream. And what could possibly be wrong with this painting? Well, I'm not exactly sure, but I have some ideas. While I am waiting for my ideas to coalesce, I'm going ahead and doing some glazing anyway. So I just warmed this up a little bit, and actually it looks a little bit better. One of the things I think might be the problem with this painting is that it's too monochromatic. Now, I love monochromatic paintings. There's nothing wrong with a painting that's all, gray, brown, green, red, whatever the mono is. But this one is not. It is not. So I think, because it's so warm, I think it might be improved if I were to add a little bit more bluish, cool, where I can. The effect will be, actually, ironically, if you can process this, the effect of adding coolness to this warm painting will not be that the painting becomes cooler. It'll actually be that it will accentuate the warmth of this zone even more. So I'm not turning it into a cool painting, but I am adding some cool tones to it that will, you could say it balances the palette, but that's not really what I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about balancing. I'm concerned about boredom. I'm concerned about, is it so uniformly warm? So I'm going to add some ultramarine down here into these shadows, see if I can make some cool shadows down here. In order for that to really work, I would have to add some light, and I may do that. By the way, one of the things I hope you may derive from this series of videos that I'm doing is that, as an artist, yes, absolutely yes, you don't even need to ask. Is it legal for you to go in and modify your paintings? Heck, if it isn't sold yet, it's your painting. You can do whatever you want to it. It's absolutely legal. There's nothing sacred about this painting until it's sold, and then it's somebody else's. Then you can't. Oh, there is some guy in history that actually did, some famous painter did go into a museum, the legend goes, and began retouching one of his paintings in a museum. That's pretty funny. All right, but I don't think that's the main thing. So I do think that what I just did helped a tiny bit. Cool, and warm. I think the main problem with this painting is, and this is ironic, so some of you need to be careful about this. It is so uniformly soft that there are not quite enough hard edges in it. Now that's really dangerous, because especially for perhaps somebody, if you're an early journey painter, if you're an old timer, you know this. Here's one of Dan Nelson's mantras. It's easy for a painting to have too many hard edges. Nearly impossible for a painting to have too many soft edges. But look, that's just exactly what I said about. So I said nearly impossible. I'm glad I haven't been saying impossible all these years, because I've been saying it's nearly impossible for a painting to have too many soft edges. But I think I might have just found that one painting. So I don't want to add hard edges everywhere. I just want to add a few hard edges, and of course, for me, one of the quickest ways to do that is with these pencils. It is not traditional to paint, to draw on top of an oil painting with pencils. You know that. But I don't care. I'm not trying to be traditional. I love the feel of adding this scratchy lines in a smooshy oil painting, if you will. All oil paintings are kind of smooshy, so to speak, compared to the scratchiness of pencils. So I've been doing that for years. That is nothing new. I don't see any pencil in this painting, which, if that's the case, that means it's at least over 6 years old. I have no idea when I did this painting, but yeah, it probably is more than 6 years old, or 7, I don't know, because I started using pencils only about 6 or 7 years ago. I've talked about that in my videos many times, so I won't repeat it here, how I started, why I started, and the discovery that I made. But it is one of the chief differences. As I look at my old paintings, if I do a retrospective surveying of my paintings, I can tell if it's an old painting because it doesn't have pencils in it. And so that's the case here. It did not have pencil marks, and now it does. And I'm happy to say, yes, it's already getting better. Now, I paint in layers, in phases, in stages. I guess I'll go layers like this. That is one of the chief characteristics of my painting technique. I recommend you emulate me in that regard. Don't paint in zones. Here's the sky zone, here's the building zone, here's the mill wheel zone, here's the stone zone. No, paint in layers. Everything gets painted coming up like this, like a watercolorist does. So you watercolorists have to do that. You have no option. You oil painters, some of you would benefit to learn about how watercolors have to paint. They have to paint everything all at once. And that's the way I do my oil painting. So at the end of every zone, not that. At the end of every layer, the last layer that I did, there's too much of it. So right now I'm doing a pencil layer. At the end of my pencil layer, which I'm just about there will in fact be too much pencil in the painting. But not to worry, because the painting's not finished. So it's okay for there to be too much. By the way, as you can hear, I'm painting this is on a panel, 1/4-inch plywood. And if my research, well, hello, Wright Jackson. We do need to connect. We do need, my brother. I've thought about you often lately. I hope you're doing all right. I'm doing well. I'm busy, as always. Busier than always in many respects. Busier than ever. So there'll be too much pencil, but not to worry. Oh, I was going to say I'm painting on plywood. If my research is correct, my plywood painting should last 500, 600, 700 years. I won't be here to find out, but probably. If they are gesso, so the plywood, getting it ready for a painting is quite the trick. It has 4 or 5 or 6 layers of gesso on each side, sanded in between, and the edges, even the edges are gessoed. So it's a hermetically sealed piece of wood is the theory here. All right, after doing pencil, almost always the next step for me is dark details in dark transparent. So what makes the paint transparent? The liquid or the whatever medium you're using. Historically, that would have been linseed oil, but for me it's liquid. Sometimes Neil McGilt. Sometimes a mixture, often a mixture of those two. So with my, so I'm drawing again, this time with brushes, thin brushes, and you can see how I'm holding the brushes. That is critically important to achieving the right kind of line. You don't want to hold the brush like this. It'll make clunky lines, 1/4-inch thick lines. I've joked with people in the past. I can spot a painting from 25 paces in which the brush was held this way. And after a second, you will be able to. It's real simple because there's a preponderance of lines in the painting. They're roughly 1/4 of an inch thick, because that's what you get when you paint with the point of your brush. I can prove that with more time. I'm not going to bother today. I've talked about it too much in the past. Now, at the end of this phase, at the end of this stage, there will be too much linear painting with brush, right? So I just want you to understand, at the end of every phase, there's too much of a good thing, if you will. Not to worry, because the painting is not done at the end of this phase. And subsequent layers will do much to diminish, in this case, too much drawing with the brushes. So not to worry, it doesn't bother me that there's going to be too much, because subsequent layers will push this layer back. The only layer that it's important when you finish that layer that the painting look good is the very last layer. Exactly. Up until then, and I think that is one of the I think that is one of the chief differences between how an artist thinks and how non-artist thinks. And Bob Ross, though I love his program and so on, did non-artists a great disservice, because he painted more or less in zones, and he had to have the painting looking kind of cute, if you will, at the end of every stage, and because of the constraints of a painting for a TV show. But that is not how real painting is done. Real painting, I've never said this before, so listen up. Real painting is kind of like the ugly duckling. It goes through many stages of ugly before it gets finally to good looking, to beautiful, like the ugly duckling did, because he was a swan, right. So right now I'm using a very, very light mixture of paint. It's 90% liquid or something on my brushes, and 5 or 10% color. So it's very, very watercolorish, which is very nice, especially for those little branches up there. Okay, I'm going to rush ahead. I'm not going to try to finish modifying this painting all during this broadcast. That would take too long. I want to move on to some other ones. But the very next thing often that I do after drawing with a brush is scratch. And these cheap chip brushes, some of you regulars know, they're my very favorite brush. And it's so funny because they're the cheapest brushes ever invented, right? They're not even made for art supplies. They're made, for whatever, industrial use. So by doing this, I'm already diminishing the lininess of what I just did, simply by messing it up. Now, at the end of this phase, there's going to be too much scratching. Are you getting used to this yet? At the end of every single phase, there's too much of the last thing that I did, including this. All right, but I'm done. That didn't take long. It just dawned on me. Okay, my painting technique has matured, I like to think, improved. Now, indeed, it has over the years. It's always improving. It's always evolving. One of the things that I've added since the days many years ago when I did this painting, one of the elements that I've added to my regular painting process is called broken color. And some of you old timers, you can go back and find many while I'm talking, by the way, I'm going to scratch some more. You can find me talking about broken color quite a bit back in the day, but something has changed in the last year since I haven't been broadcasting much. I will be broadcasting again, I promise. But the one thing that has changed is I used to do broken color way at the very end, either the last or next to last layer or phase or stage of my painting. I have changed that now, and I now do the broken color earlier in the process, like right now. So my new process is dark details, broken color, then final edit. So I'm going to do broken color right now. I really have learned to really enjoy doing broken color earlier in the process, because that means I can play a little more boldly with my broken colors. I used to have to be more careful because it was so close to the final layer. I don't have that constraint anymore, so I can be a little bit more crazy with it because I still have a opaque layer on top of this, and I can cover up some of the broken color. So I've started out, my broken color technique is quite arbitrary, almost OCD. I virtually always start out with purple. You don't have to do that. No good reason. That's just me habit. The good reason is, I suppose, is that having a formula keeps you from standing around scratching your head wondering what to do next. Okay? So you don't have to start with purple, but it might not be a bad idea for you to have, start somewhere. And then I go around the color wheel, either toward the red side of the color wheel from purple or toward the blue. Either one, it's not always the same. I can already see, and okay, broken color, forgive me, I'm interrupting myself. Broken color is the same value, lightness, darkness is what's already there, but a different color. Same value, different color. So because I have purple on my brush right now, I'm actually looking for parts of the areas of the painting that are yellowish. Well, that's quite a bit of the painting. So I'm not having to look very far. And I was going to say before that, I can already see that adding broken color to this rather monochromatic painting is going to make a big difference in this painting. Woohoo! I think my goal here is to change a B- painting into an A+ painting. Wouldn't that be a good day, eh? Now, I should say that when I'm doing broken color, I very often accidentally do what I call pushed color. In other words, I'm not doing the same value. Like the color that's on my brush right now is definitely a lavender, very pale, light purple, and I'm painting like highlights. So it's both broken color and, okay, that's enough purple, and pushed color. I don't try to do two separate phases, push and then break. Break color and then push color. I just let it all happen at the same time. All right, I just added some permanent rose, which is a very pinky or magenta-ish color to the purple that was already there. So it's kind of a fuchsia, maybe plum color, something like that, that's on my brushes right now. And broken color, by the way, the inference, the assumption is that broken color is not logical. It's not sensible. It's not realistic. It is not realism. It is interesting painting, okay? If a painting is good, that's because three opposing impulses have met together to make it a good painting. One is the drawing or the rendering, people, human beings, normal human beings, everybody except those who have earned an MFA, Master of Fine Arts degree, they don't count, they're not normal. Everybody likes seeing something that a fellow human being has rendered. So that's one of the elements. The other element is marks made with your hand, history of human movement. And the third one is the elements of design: line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Interesting line, interesting shape, interesting color, interesting composition, interesting texture. You got it. Okay, interesting. So the broken colors phase is not, I repeat, is not an exercise in realism. In fact, you can almost call it anti-realism, but it is very much an exercise in interesting color. All right, that's enough of that color. Then I'm going to wipe off my brush with a Kleenex. What else? Hey, Uncle 60, good to see ya. This is an old one, Uncle 60. This is an old painting. I have a show coming up. Oh, I haven't said this yet today. I've got a show coming up in downtown Raleigh in a few weeks. That's sort of like a retrospective, a retrospective of Dan Nelson painting Raleigh. I'm calling myself, for this in the marketing, the painter of Raleigh, because I believe I've painted Raleigh roughly 500 times over the last couple of decades, and I'm taking the liberty of saying there's nobody else that's done anywhere close to that, and so I get to claim the moniker, the painter of Raleigh. I know it's a marketing, it's puffery, of course, but I think it's also probably literally true. I had a young friend 10, 15 years ago say, Dan, you're never going to get famous painting Raleigh. And I blurted out, without thinking, said, I don't expect to get famous painting Raleigh. I expect Raleigh to get famous because I painted it. Wow. Chutzpah. Arrogance? Nah, I don't think so. Confidence. There's a difference. And of course, can I make that happen? No way. Not at all. Can I make that happen? Not even close. But I can just do my best. So I've got a show coming up. So I've racked my, I've done several new paintings for the show. And, okay, that's enough red. But I've gone into my attic and pulled out things like this, paintings that have never quite succeeded. And I've got 7 of them in my studio right behind me today. I'm going to do as many as I can as broadcasts, the way I'm doing right here, because I think this could be some of the most beneficial to any of you who are painters. This could be some of the most insightful broadcasts I ever do. The question for all of them will be, what's wrong with my painting? Because we all ask ourselves, don't pretend you don't. I'm not pretending I don't. I do. It's what's wrong with this painting? I've asked myself so many times. Some of you have heard this story, you old timers like Uncle 60. Wow, Uncle, you're always up to crazy things. Wow, that is cool. Using texture-y stuff, huh? Good for you, always experimenting. I've told this story before, so Uncle's probably heard it, but I had a painting in my studio many years ago that it was leaning up again in the wall, against the wall of my studio for years, 3-4 years, and every once it had potential, and I said, man, what's wrong with this painting? And I would pick it up and mess with it, and that didn't fix it, and I'd put it down, and 6 months or a year later I'd pick it up and mess with it again, and that didn't fix it. Finally, I gave up. I just gave up. I took it out to the garage, and in those days I used to take a palm sander, not a belt sander, a palm sander, and sand off the oil paint so that I could re-gesso the canvas. So I took this painting and I started doing that, and I sanded for about 30 seconds, and all of a sudden I went, oh. I had fixed the painting. I'm not exactly sure what I did, but all of a sudden this painting came alive under the sanding machine. So needless to say, I quit sanding. I brought it back in the studio, spent 10 minutes touching it up, and to this day it is in my mind one of those paintings that stands out. I'll try to remember to show that to you sometime. It's basically the front porch. It might be called a sunlit porch. No, it's not that. There's a bed and breakfast in a small town in North Carolina, Little Washington, and had a Victorian house with a front porch with the sun shining on it. And anyway, that's the painting that got suddenly, okay, that's enough orange. It got suddenly fixed with that sander. Sir Daniel Walter Raleigh Nelson. Exactly. I've got a cold that's 99% gone. Hallelujah. Oh, that's funny. Me and Walter, we go way back. So I have now a pale yellow, or pale warm yellow that is slight, tiny bit of orangish in it, but it's mostly yellow. By the way, broken color, the broken color bits should not have all hard edges. I tend to be a little bit hard edge with them, but that is not a good thing. They should be all kinds. So I was just making some really soft ones over here just a minute ago. Doing some traditionally called sky holes. They should be called tree holes, but we've had that conversation already. Whoops. So easy to mess up when you're doing sky holes and to create dots. And then you have to engage in de-dotification, which is what I'm doing with my finger there. All right, enough of that. Let's go on to, I want a little bit of pure bright, I don't want to take time to clean these brushes. So, by the way, you guys, some of you see me throwing around all this medium liquid, which is a little bit odoriferous, a little bit smelly. My wife, a couple weeks ago, invested in a super duper, it's called Air Doctor. It's about the size of the biggest suitcase you can take on an airplane. It's about that big, a little bit bigger than that. And it cleans the air. We have really enjoyed, and it's set on number 3 right now, which is rather high because I'm using so much liquid at the moment. All right, so I have very intense yellow on my brushes right now. It's a very dangerous color. It's like electric neon. A very cool yellow. The good news is this is not my last layer, so I can be a little bit heavy-handed and then cover it up. I know, I want a little bit of palette knife grass here. Those don't look good at all. Do you ever make a mark and go, dang, that stunk, that stunk? Well then, here's the beauty of acrylic. Well, here's the beauty of oils, is that you can mess it up, right? Rub it, scrub it. Don't get mad and try to erase it. No, just use it to your advantage. All right, that's enough of that color. Now let's go right on to bright chartreuse green. Bright chartreuse green is the lightest color the human eye can discern. That's why school crossing signs in America are chartreuse, and some fire trucks, more fire trucks should be chartreuse, except people are just traditionally want to see a yellow fire truck. I'm convinced that's the reason. But the best color scientifically would be a light, bright chartreuse green. It's the most neon-esque, the most electric of all colors, and that's what I've got on my brush right now. So needless to say, it's a dangerous color. I'm just about spending more time on this painting than I want to. I want to finish quickly. So I think what I'll do is I'll end it here. If I do something interesting, I'll bring it in a separate broadcast. But you've seen enough to get the idea of the broken color. And then the last thing I'm going to do is the final edit, which is opaque or realistic, so to speak, colors. And with that layer, I will push back, because what do you know about the broken color layer right now? Exactly. At the end of this phase, there's way too much of it. Got it. Are you getting that? All of a sudden, I'm liking this bright green water down here. Just a trickle. This is not a stream. It's just a trickle between the rocks. I think you can tell that. Yeah, that was fun. All right, enough of that. I thank you for your chats. Oh my goodness, let's see what else is happening. Yeah, Wright's an original. Right, that's an original Raleighite. Ooh, yeah, Uncle, that's a great discovery, isn't it? To discover some mistake in your own paintings, that is great. Light source, yeah. Hey Dan, the path and building source makes your painting excellent. Very good, appreciate it. All right, I am happy with where this is going. I really am. It's going to be a good one. And it's got, an hour or more of work to do now, but hey, if I could take an old painting and spend 3 hours in it and make it from a B- to an A or an A+, boy, that's time well spent. Thanks for joining me in this. And yeah, I'm going to do another one and start another broadcast and another painting in a few minutes. Thanks so much for watching.